Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jerusalem. Today we're going to talk about weapons of mass destruction. Today we're going to talk about words. Today we want to talk about speech. Today we're talking about nuclear power. Nuclear power. My first point I'd like to make is that words, it's so simple and so profound. Words are powerful. Words are powerful. Does anybody know how God created the world? God, the world. How did God create the world? Anybody? Look in the Torah. There's a whole description in the Torah how God created the world. It's true. It took 6 days of creation. That's true. And how did God? That's how long it took. How did God create the world? It says again and again in the Torah, God spoke. He said, let there be light. He said, right, let there be the sun, right? He spoke. And in 10 statements, with speech, God creates the world. Words create. Please God, one day soon, you guys are going to find that beautiful girl of your dreams. Make her Jewish. Nice Jewish boys here. And you're gonna put a ring on her finger and marry her. I'd like to ask you, let's get technical for a moment. How and where exactly is the transaction of a Jewish marriage? How will you actually undergo the legal moment of, you call it an acquisition or transaction or bonding? How does that happen? Where and how does that happen? It's a Jewish wedding, a Jewish rabbi, a Jewish ceremony. Okay, fine. How exactly do you get married? I'll tell you how. That's not good enough. That won't get you married. I'll tell you how. You're going to say 9 words. 9 words. These are words you want to get right. 9 words, okay? I'll say them quickly. Hara mikudeshes li b'tabat zu kedas Moshe v'Yisrael. Those 9 words will change your life forever, and change the life of the woman standing next to you forever. It is words which have the power to create a marital bond. Suddenly being with some other woman is adultery. What changed? What changed is that you spoke 9 words. It's words which create bonds. And humans are fundamentally different than all other creatures and creations on this planet. Okay, although there are those who say dolphins are humans too. Judaism says, no, they're not. We're sorry. No, they're not. Humans are not animals. Humans are categorically, fundamentally different. This is in the Bible, chapter 1, verse 26, verse 26, 27. God says, God created man in his image. God created man in his image. And what does that mean? What does that mean? God created man in his image. The original art scroll, even many millennia before art scroll was created, the original translation, centuries before Rashi showed up to explain the Torah, there wasn't actually, in the times of the Talmud itself, there was a translator of the Torah. His name was Onkelos. That was his name. Don't laugh, okay? It sounds funny. You wouldn't want someone to laugh if your name was Onkelos, all right? So that was his name. And he translated Torah. And how does he translate this expression that man is God created man, this living being in the image of God? Onkelos says, a ruach memala, means, he's writing in Aramaic to translate. In those days, Aramaic was really cool. It was like English, right? So today we speak English, we translate into English. Right? In those days, Aramaic was the thing, okay? So that was the hot language. So what is it? How does he translate a godly living being, this human, a speaking being? The fact that a human being The fact that a human can speak is what differentiates him from all other creatures and creations. You have a godly soul, it means you can speak. That means you're like God. Hold on. If you're like God and you can speak, what does that mean? That means that you can be a creator, just like God created. With words, you can create with words. Wow, words are powerful. Words create a reality. And I'm going to prove this to you right now. You ready for this? I'm going to show you, you're not going to believe me, but you'll see that I'm right. I'm going to show you that everyone in the world recognizes this. They're not aware of it, but everyone in the world has a universal phrase that recognizes this fact, that words create. You ready? And you know it. The word is Abracadabra. You ever see a magician? They go like this and take the magic wand and say, Abracadabra. Here's a rabbit. I created it. What does that mean? Everyone says that. Jew and non-Jew. Where did that come from? It's actually a Hebrew. No, it's a Hebrew expression. Abra, from the word Briata Olam, Borei. It means to create. Abra, I will create. Kedabra, like I speak. I will say something, poof, or voila, or whatever other magic word, right? And I will create this. Now, of course, it's a simulation. It's a joke, right? But the jokes are deep. The jokes are deep, right? There's a lot of, it's borrowing from the Jewish concept. This is the concept that words create. Words build worlds. And what's the flip side? Words are so powerful, they can destroy worlds. Words create and words destroy. What I'd like to show you here today is that speech is a matter of life and death. Speech, language, verbal expression is a matter of life or death. And this is expressed openly in the book of Mishlei in chapter 18, verse 21, where King Solomon says, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. Mavet v'chaim biyad Lashon. Words are a matter of life and death. You can kill someone with words, and you can bring life to someone with words. And the Midrash tells a story about, you could say it, a long story. We're going to try to say it in a short version of the story, right? A story of a king who got very sick, and he went to the doctors, and the doctors said, "It's going to sound wild. I guess this, so many centuries ago, the doctor said, the only way you're going to get better is if you are able to drink the milk of a lioness. If you will drink from the milk of a lioness, then you will live." Now there was a problem, right? What's the problem? He was not a Jewish king. Great question. Okay. If you can drink from the milk of a lioness, you'll live. But the problem, of course, is how in the world are you going to get milk from a lioness? So all the king's servants and all the king's men, right, made an announcement like, we need king. Like, can anyone help us, right? Fine. So there was one guy who figured out a way. He figured out a way, and whatever. He figured out a way, and he said, "Listen, I think I can do it," right? And he did it, and he comes back, and the night before he was on his way back to the king. He had a dream. And in his dream, it was just a dream. It's just a dream. All the parts of his body were arguing about who's greater. Who's the most powerful? His head said, "I'm the most powerful." His heart said, "I'm the most powerful." Right? Everyone has their own reason. Right? Without a heart, you can't do anything. Without eyes, you can't. Without legs, right? Everyone can make their own argument. And the tongue said, I'm the most powerful. Everyone's like, "Nah, you're joking, you little stupid little thing." Yeah. He's like, "Okay, let's see." Fine. He wakes up. milk of the lioness, have to bring it to the king. He gets to the king. They're like, okay, if he's huffing and puffing, I have to see the king. I can help him. You bring him in front of the king, and he's like, okay, Your Highness, Your Majesty, He's like, what is that? I have the milk. He says, the milk from where? From a dog. From a dog? Off with his head! Are you making a joke? You're making fun of me? Right? So he's like, no, I made a mistake, right? In other words, he corrects himself. But in those moments, it became clear. He's like, wait a second. What's the most, the tongue is like, yo, I told you. What's the most powerful thing, right? It's just a story, but the concept here is that the words we speak, the words matter. And words can easily get you killed in a moment and bring life in a moment. In fact, the verse in Mishlei, chapter 12, verse 18, says it best. And here's a verse that I love. The verse in Mishlei, again, in the book of Proverbs, it says, I'll translate, it says, hurtful words are like stabbing someone with a dagger, with a sword. But wise words heal people. Excuse me. Tough, strong, hurtful words are like stabbing someone with a sword. But the tongue of someone who speaks wisely, right, it heals someone. It could bring healing. You could heal somebody with words. It could bring life to someone. You see? The verse itself is saying, in the Bible, speech is a matter of life or death. Now, words are like, words, as the Torah here says, are like stabbing someone with a dagger. Stabbing someone with a dagger. It's a dagger to his heart. You know, we all are familiar with the phrase. All of us have heard the phrase. And finish it for me. Sticks or stones can break your bones, but, words, or people say names will never hurt you, right? That's what they taught you in day school, in elementary school, in kindergarten. Sticks or stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you. And names will never hurt you. And you know what Judaism says? That is the most counterfactual, untrue, immoral statement. It's exactly the opposite. We say, sticks or stones can break your bones, but names will hurt you more. Sticks or stones can break your bones, but names will hurt you more, even more. Because if I break your bone, what will happen? It hurts, but a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, it heals. It heals. And the Talmud actually says so explicitly, also brings this concept, that if you hurt someone with words, it's much more of a sin than if you hurt them physically. Can you believe that? I broke your arm. That was wrong. I hurt you by insulting you, humiliating you, embarrassing you, calling you names. That actually hurts you more, and it's a bigger sin. And why is it a bigger sin? Simple. It stays with you forever. Right? It still hurts. I'm sure everyone in this room, I won't ask anyone any questions, right? Everyone in this room has had an experience where people said something to them which was so demeaning and so disgraceful and so disgracing and so humiliating. It put you down so bad. It hurts still today, right? We're still insulted. We can still feel the shame. We can still feel the painful negative feelings. Therefore, you take a word, W-O-R-D, and you need to ask yourself, every time you speak, am I saying, what is this? Is this a word? Or is this put an S in front of that. Is this a sword? Do you know what a sword is? Do you know what a sword is? Brooklyn! You know what a sword is? Read it. It means sword. Okay? That's how you spell sword, isn't it? Right? Check it out. Behind me. Sword. A word. It could be used as a word. It could also be used as a sword, otherwise pronounced sword. In other words, it's this close. Every word you say can actually be a harmless or loving, kind word, or it could be as if you stabbed someone with a sword in their heart, killing them. And which is worse? Which is worse? To be stabbed with a sword or to be stabbed with a word? The Talmud answers. To be stabbed with a word is even more painful than a sword, because you're destroying their whole inner essence. You're hurting someone with words. That's the expression. The tongue is mightier than the sword, right? A takeoff of a pen is mightier than the sword. A tongue is mightier than the sword. In fact, the Gemara in Erechim on page 15 says that speaking negatively about someone is like killing them. You can assassinate someone with your words. Character assassination. And it just takes one little wrinkle of the nose, one little turn of the face, one little a little grimace and a wink in front of a crowded room, and you put this guy down, and it's like he's humiliated and shamed in front of everyone. That wasn't a word. It started off as a word, and then somehow it became a sword, and you basically stabbed him to death. Wow. And the Gemara actually says, the Talmud, this is going back 1,500 years. The Talmud actually says, you want actual proof with your eyes? Proof with your eye that you can see that it's as if you've killed him? Because what happens when you humiliate someone publicly? His face turns red. All the blood rushes out. And then after that, his face turns white, pale. In other words, you called him fat. Oh my gosh, cuff him. Bring him down to the station. What exactly happened? Yeah, he called him fat. Yeah, so what? What's the big deal? He insulted him. He embarrassed him. He humiliated him. He shamed him. He gossiped about him. He said this and this about him. Do whatever you want. It's a free country. I say whatever I feel like. There's no laws about how to talk about other people. I can say whatever I want. I can hurt you as much as I feel. There's no laws. Judaism says it's immoral. It's criminal. It's sinful. You can be punished the same way as if you did something, any other severe sin that you do understand. In America, they talk about gun control. There's no talk about word control. Say whatever you want. It's problematic. But everyone's doing it. Well, my friends, welcome to Judaism. We take responsibility for the world. Who says? I say. Who says? God says. That's immoral. It's wrong. But no one else thinks it's wrong. We don't care. God says it is wrong. The Torah says it is wrong. Judaism says it is wrong. And in fact, the Talmud, the Gemara in Erechim on page 15 teaches us that God, of course, knows. God knew that the tongue is dangerous. God knows that the tongue is dangerous. God knows that people are actually a danger to other people, right? We all live in one big world society, and the tongue is potentially so dangerous. And therefore, catch this, God set up a security system. God set up a maximum security system for our tongue. And the Talmud calls our attention to the fact that the tongue is different than all other parts of the body in that it has gates. Not just one gate on it, but two gates. Walls that God built in into our bodies. One is the teeth. You speak with your tongue, right? You need your tongue to speak, or you'll lock it out, because the teeth, you close the teeth, you can't speak. It doesn't hurt. You don't know what I'm talking about. And God says that's not good enough. We're also going to have the lips. So God says it's so dangerous, it needs to be behind bars, not one set of bars, two sets of bars, because if you let it loose, if it's unguarded, it could wreak havoc. Words are weapons of mass destruction. You could kill people. You could destroy relationships. You can destroy. You say one nasty thing about somebody, you can destroy him in 1 second. You start some rumor about someone, you ruin his career. You can ruin it. You can get him fired. You can ruin all. The Talmud, the Bible itself tells a story about a guy named. It's a longer story, but there was a guy named Doeg, and Doeg was jealous. He was jealous of David. It's in the book of Samuel. He was jealous of David, and he slandered. He said something. He presented something not true about him. And because of that, King Saul actually, it's not a pleasant story. An entire city was killed, men, women, and children. Innocent people, totally innocent. But King Saul thought that they were guilty because one person said something to make it look that they're bad people. Just like this, weapons of mass destruction. You can destroy a whole city, just like that, right? So your tongue is a lethal weapon. You are dangerous. Your tongue is a lethal weapon, right? And therefore, it needs to be behind bars and maximum security. And yet, still, we somehow manage to bypass and we end up hurting people anyway. And so, here's Jewish practice for you. Every day, anyone who follows Jewish law, every single day offers a prayer. Not once, but 3 times a day. Check it out. 3 times a day, every Jew offers a prayer to God, a personal prayer, private prayer to God. And they say, Elokai, my God, nitzar lishoni mira. Please, God, please help me guard my tongue from hurtful words. Wow. Elokai nitzar lishoni mera usvasai minaber mima. Help me hold myself back, my lips, guard my tongue. Help me not hurt people and destroy people. And you know what? You can meet a lot of Jews wearing these beanie things. Yeah? And some of them are very, very careful, very, very particular about what goes into their mouth. Oh, I can't eat that. This. Oh, no, that's not for me. Very, very careful, almost like crazy. They get crazy. Oh, this, all kinds of laws and details. I can't. And what comes out of their mouth? No problem. And the rabbis are teaching, hold on, you might want to reconsider that. Which is it? In fact, I'd be so daring as to ask the question, what's a greater sin? We don't compare sins, sins are bad, but let's. What's a more severe sin? What goes into your mouth and what goes out of your mouth? Let's eat something not kosher. That's wrong. It's a sin. But you know what? The words that come out of your mouth are actually a bigger sin. So maybe we should, I'm not telling us not to eat kosher, but maybe we should for those people who are very careful about what goes into the mouth and not so careful what goes out of the mouth, maybe you want to adjust that a little bit. You want to consider words that come out of their mouth as well. And you know what? The fact that we can speak at all is a gift. Most of creatures in the world cannot speak. It's a gift. It's a deep, very satisfying pleasure to be able to express ourselves and communicate with other people. Very, very deep pleasure. If we don't use it right, God could take it away. And in fact, the opening story in the Bible, pretty much, chapter 3 of the Bible, tells a story about a snake. Remember that story? Crazy story, the snake in the Garden of Eden. And what did he do? Remember the story? He spoke negatively about God himself. What we would call Lashon Hara, which sounds absurd. It sounds ridiculous. He comes to Eve and Adam. He's like, oh, listen, God says this. And God's worried that you're trying to take his job. He slanders God himself. He speaks Lashon Hara. He's the first being to speak Lashon Hara. You know what God did? God punished him. You know what he did? You ever see a snake? You ever see the tongue of a snake? He slashed his tongue. He ripped his tongue. Hey, that's the way you talk? You don't deserve to talk. If you read the story, whatever it means, the snake was originally able to talk. Well, not anymore. His tongue got slashed and destroyed, right? Because he misused it. So that's what I've shown you, is that words are dangerous. Words can harm. Words can destroy. But words can also heal. Let me take the last few minutes to show this to us. Words can heal. Remember, that was the flip side of the verses that we read before in the book of Proverbs. Let me quote a couple of other verses in Proverbs just because they're so precious and so beautiful. You can check out Proverbs chapter 18. I can't read my writing here. Chapter 16, verse 24, where it says that kind words are like a honeycomb. Sweet like honey, and they're sweet to the soul, and they're healing to the body. And again, Proverbs chapter 15, verse 4, a soothing tongue is like a fountain of life. A fountain of life, right? So here it is again. Okay, words can heal, and I can tell you real stories of how just one comment, one hurtful comment was so disempowering to somebody that they just gave up. I can tell you a true story. I know somebody, a brilliant person, extremely brilliant, right? I'm sure he was at the top of his class, and he was doing a dissertation for a master's degree or a doctorate. And he came to meet with his professor. And this guy's I would say I don't know, is he a genius? But the student who was writing it is extremely gifted and intelligent. He came to the professor, and for whatever reason, the professor said, like, this is bad. This is like, he was so, instead of encouraging, and he was almost finished. The student was so hurt, and he felt so hurt and like, again, disempowered. He just dropped out of the program. I met the person. It was many, many years later. And he would ask him, like, weren't you supposed to get a doctorate? Yeah, no. It's just it was so painful to hear that story. This guy is so intelligent. I mean, right? So that's it. We can really destroy someone with words, but we can also build someone with. We could save someone's life with words, right? You know, I'm going to tell you something shocking, but you can Google it. You'll see it for yourself. It's a frightening statistic. Do you know the ratio between the ratio of the tragic occurrences of homicide compared to suicide? Homicide compared to suicide. Sorry to bring up such a morbid topic. What happens more? Homicide or suicide? Homicide, what a terrible thing that the world, again, we come from America. We're dealing with gun control, like careful, like hurting, like killing people. Would you believe me if I told you? You can check it out for yourself. There are way more than double the amount of suicides every year than homicides. Wow. Now, let's be honest for a moment. How does that happen? How does that happen? People feel, for whatever reason, so negative about themselves, so hurt, so unwanted, so unloved, so put down, so dismissed and dejected and rejected. They're like, I'm worthless. I basically have no purpose here. Basically, no one loves you. No one loves me. Trust me. If everyone, I haven't met the guy, right? Everything's so good. He gets complimented all day, and that guy kills himself. That almost never happens, right? So that's a painful statistic and something that we need to think about responsibly. Like, you're part of this world. Take responsibility a little bit for society. Perhaps the biggest gift you can ever give someone is the gift of a kind word, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything. It's so easy to do. Just say something nice. And don't say something hurtful and rude and mean and right and degrading to somebody. I'm going to end with a Zohar. I'm going to end with a mystical secret from the Zohar. But I'm not a mystic. I'm not a Kabbalist. I'm not a great rabbi. I'm just a simple Jew. But I will say this. This Zohar, I'm going to quote just one line from the Zohar. Okay, the mystical book of Judaism. I'm going to quote one teaching. And I'll tell you this teaching is so powerful. I'd say it's worth its weight in gold. If you're writing notes, write this down. And I'm even going to quote you the source because you're not going to, you say, I need to see this for myself. Good. See it for yourself. Okay? The Zohar says in Parshas Tazria in 46b, it says the following. You ready for this? Just like, I'm paraphrasing, just like we will be punished for speaking negative words to people and about people, so too, we are going to be punished, equally punished, for not saying nice words to those who we could have said it. Just as we're going to be punished for speaking hurtful, negative words about people and to people, to the same extent, we're going to be punished for not saying nice words when you could have. Someone got dressed up for that wedding, and they worked hard to get that outfit and to dress well, and you could have said, "Whoa, you're looking great." You could have said that. You just don't feel like it because you're so self-centered. You don't want to make them feel good. Like, why do they deserve my compliment or whatever it is? You could say nice car. You know it's his life's dream. You could say nice lawn, nice flowers. You could say anything. You could say nice words to people. But you don't. You could have. Could you imagine? You're going to show up to heaven. The guy's like, okay. It's like, hey, I was a good boy. He's like, oh, just imagine for a moment. You show up to heaven, and the guy's like, oh, you're going to hell. Like, go to hell? Where was my sin? Where was your sin? You know how hard your brother worked to do something impressive? And all you needed to do was just like notice him. You know how hard your son worked to get your attention? And all he was waiting for was a compliment. He worked so hard on that test, and all you need to say was like, great job, kid. I'm really proud of you. Instead, you're like, hey, how come you only got a 91? You could have got a 100. Whatever it is. You know how hard your wife worked to make dinner for you? And all you had was, she made 6 things, and all you had to say was like, that one thing wasn't so good. That's a sin. And it's a sin of omission. You didn't say anything. That's exactly right. Could you imagine? You're going to go to hell? We're going to go to hell for not saying something? Whoever heard of such a crazy idea? That's what the mystical Kabbalah teaches us, the Jewish people. We're responsible not just for the words we speak. We're responsible for the words we don't speak. Wow. The sin of not speaking positive words. What have we learned today? I've showed you, right? We've learned that our words are lethal weapons, and our words have the opportunity to kill. At the same time, the flip side, our words have the possibility and the ability of bringing someone back from death, of breathing life and encouragement into someone, helping someone feel like they have self-worth and self-value, helping them have a life of happiness on their own once they feel encouraged and feel confident and competent. Wow, our words are powerful. The gift of God, right, of being a human speaking being is powerful. You are powerful. You walk around with weapons of mass destruction. We're dangerous, us humans. We're dangerous, but we're also the most powerful people on earth. Especially in today's very fast world of technology and communication. You can make people feel good, millions of people in one shot. You could say one nice thing or say, right? You can help people in such a huge way by utilizing and harnessing the opportunity and the ability to use words to build, to use words to love, to use words to spread kindness. So I bless you and bless you back. I bless you and bless you back. That we should use our words in the best way and only in the best way. Thanks for listening.